Okay, as Judy said, welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about how to have a successful implementation with CRM. And just a quick look at the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about some potential pitfalls that you can encounter when implementing a CRM system. And then we're going to talk more about tips that I have to make your implementation successful. One thing I will say before we get into the pitfalls and tips is even if you've already implemented CRM and you're like, it's too late, we've done this, it didn't work, these tips can still be applicable for you. You can go back, you can take these steps to make your current CRM setup better. So definitely this can apply whether you already have implemented a CRM system or if you are looking to implement a CRM system. Okay, so the first place that I want to talk about is how implementation can fail during planning. And here I've highlighted out a few of the reasons. Not clearly defining your why. Why are you using CRM? What are you going to be tracking in it? And we'll talk more about that in our tips. So implementing without a project plan, thinking, hey, this is the best and latest technology, let's just implement it, it's going to fix all our problems. Not focusing on your end users, the people, not involving your end users. That is one of the biggest pitfalls that I will say. You have an executive, they're like, we need a new CRM system. I want to be able to see all this stuff. And then they get a really awesome demo and they're like, this works great. Let's implement it. You have an IT person as your coordinator and they're like, sure, let's just put it out there. And you never consult the end user. So when it's out there, maybe it's not user friendly, or maybe it just doesn't flow well, it doesn't fit into their day. Not involving those end users and having a coordinator that it's a secondary concern for them. A lot of IT people get picked as a CRM coordinator, and there's a difference between managing all of your hardware and software licenses and that type of IT, and actually being kind of a champion for a CRM project that includes more business processes. Another time that implementations can fail is during the implementation. You could throw a bunch at them all at once, and you can be like, okay, everything's changed. Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. You can have inaccurate data. That's probably the leading cause of people not using the CRM is if you do not scrub your data before putting it in, or you do not make sure that everyone is using the same source. Inaccurate data will be the thing that will cause people to stop using your system the quickest. You want to make sure that you are training them, so limited training. And another thing that I really see as a problem is teams working independently. So you have a sales team, and then maybe you're taking this over to your production team, but they look at it, they're like, CRM is a sales tool. Why would we want to do that? We want to see our data this way. We're not concerned with what they're doing. Working independently, it just will cause things to become too fractured. And in the end, low user adoption, all of this causes low user adoption. And if you have low user adoption, people aren't using it, your system's not going to work no matter how amazing you have built it. At the end of the day, you need people using it. And then failing after implementation. This kind of goes right in line with low user adoption. If they don't have enough support, they're not going to continue to use it. If your executives or even your managers aren't really buying into the whole CRM thing and checking on it and using the data, that's really going to cause that low morale, low buy-in to it. Considering a one-time solution is another big thing. A lot of companies will be like, we bought a CRM system, we implemented it, we're good, we're done. Well, as your business grows, as you get new people, as you learn more about better ways to handle business processes, it's not a one-time solution. It needs to grow with your business. And then not centering your business around CRM. If you're going to put the time and effort into a CRM system and you're going to have people entering data it needs to be your source of truth. You need to have that place that you know, this is where we keep our data accurate. This is where we can go if we have questions. This is where we know this is the right information. So if you don't center your business around that, if you still are like, well, we're keeping this Excel spreadsheet over here, but we also want it in CRM, but the Excel spreadsheet is really where the accurate data is, why have a CRM? So you want to make sure that you are building it to be that source of truth, that center of your business. You can still have the financial systems and you can tie your CRMs in, and you can have an ERP solution maybe that handles invoicing and billing and such, but you do need to still have a source of truth within your CRM. So with all that, let's start talking about the tips. These are the things I really want to focus on today. So the first thing I always say is clearly define the plan. Why do you need a CRM? Are you just tracking sales? Is it a way to get your data from sales to your production team? Is it both? Really sit down, take some time. Why? We have too much paper, too much in email, too much data getting lost. Why do you need that CRM? What processes that you have currently aren't working? Is it that all your sales are handled in email, and if someone's gone and a customer calls, you have no clue what they're working on and they have questions and then they're upset that someone isn't getting back to them, things are falling through the cracks? What is it about the processes you currently have that aren't working? And extremely important also is, what are you tracking in CRM? Is it just customers? Will you have accounts and then contacts? Are you going to do leads on opportunities? Are they going to flow into orders, invoices, quotes? What are you all going to be having in CRM? We don't implement them all at one time, but just so we know overall, how do we want to design this? And then just looking at your overall strategies and goals as a business. How do you envision the CRM working? Is it so that managers can easily see what people are working on without having to hound someone? Hey, tell me what you're doing this week. Hey, tell me what you're doing this week. Now, what are you doing this week? Really take that time. Visualization, super important when you're defining your plan. This is something that I can't emphasize enough: selecting the correct project champion. So we've talked before, a lot of times when CRMs are implemented, it's maybe an IT person or a controller, or maybe it's even a mid-level manager, like you're a department manager, now you're going to oversee the CRM implementation, or a sales manager, a VP of sales, you're in charge of our CRM. You can have your champion be an individual person or a team, whatever works for your business. If you're going to have 4 departments working within the CRM, I'd say you should have 4 people on your team that are going to be champions for the CRM respective to their departments, or someone that can communicate directly with those departments and will work on behalf of those departments. These people have to fully buy into the idea of a CRM. They have to be excited about it. They have to want to improve it. They have to want people to use it with that goal that they are going to make it easier for those end users to use that tool. And they need to have the time to invest in the development, especially at an implementation stage. There's going to be a lot more time required when you're implementing, and in those first few weeks, a consultant can help you with that. Like myself, or any consultant can also help you with that during that implementation. But it is important to have someone within your organization that is like, this is the most awesome idea. I am going to be a point of contact. I fully back this idea. And then set measurable goals for the project. We want to have accounts and contacts up and running and ready to go and be used in the CRM in 2 weeks. And then within a month, we want to have all our opportunities in there. Have those measurable goals so that you can have progress as you're going through the implementation. I will say everything's important when you're doing an implementation, But if I had to pick just one thing that I want everyone to take away from these tips, it will be to design the system from the end user perspective. I will say 70% of the time, the reason a system is selected for a company, it is going to be either at the executive level or an upper management level. They're usually the ones getting the quotes and the demos and all the awesome stuff. And they're like, yes, let's use this. Okay, cool. And then they're like, hey, I want to see these 5 reports. I want to be able to see this, and I need to be able to know right away when I pull up my CRM exactly what's going on. And you customize and you build the reports they want to see, but you don't consider how easy it is for the people actually entering the data or using it on a daily basis, how easy it is for them to use. It's easy for an executive to see what's in there or an upper management level to see the data in there, but that data is not going to be accurate if it's not easy or flows well for the end user to enter that data. So when you are looking to implement a system, think about how are your end users going to use that system? Are they going to be using tablets or phones and mobile devices? Are they going to be using a computer? And really, does this make their job easier or harder? The CRM should make their jobs easier, easier for them to track what they need to be doing, what they need to do next, where they're at, and also help reduce that communication of trying to tell their managers where they're at with things. So you really want to think about the amount of data entry, if there can be automation to help make some of their tasks flow quicker. And while you are designing the system, process definition, creating these business processes of exactly how your organization is going to use the CRM. Paramount. When you get new employees, you want to have that same, whether you call it a playbook or just business process guide, how are you going to use the CRM? How are you going to name things? Once you have them in there, are there stages? Are there, 4 tasks you need to do? Have that process definition, a consistent way and an easy way for end users to get the data in there. And always solicit feedback from your end users. If people aren't giving you feedback, they might not be using the system, or they might just be like, I do the bare minimum, I hate it. They may not be giving you any feedback. So really be aware and really seek out that feedback, because the goal should always be to make the end user's job easier. Providing sufficient training and support. So I touched on creating a business process manual, very important, but you also want to make sure your end users understand the ins and outs of CRM. They don't need to know how to customize it or how you customized it, but they need to know what's expected to them. I always recommend doing it either, you can do it virtual, like we do webinars or any type of virtual training, or in-person training, not just the email instructions or here's where you can look, play around with it, let me know if you have any questions, to learn on your own. Although people like to touch things and learn by doing, you still have to have some sort of actual training. The trainer can be your CRM champion or a consultant. So this doesn't have to all fall on you. We're definitely here to help you as consultants, but I recommend either your champion or a consultant to be that trainer for the end users to also field their questions. Once you provide that initial training, especially in the first few weeks, you want to have a support contact that's readily available. Myself, when I bring a new person on for CRM training, I will tell them, just message me any questions, no matter how small. And I make sure that for those first few days to weeks that they're on there, I am available for every little question. I still can get other things done, but you really want to support them as they start using the tool, because that will help develop a habit that they will always refer to that tool or use that tool. If you're unable to get back to them or they don't have that support, you will see that end user adoption fall off very quickly. Managers and leaders should always be checking in frequently with their teams. How's it going? Any problems you're having? Any frustrations, things you'd like to see different, goes along with that soliciting feedback. People may not always come to you when they're having struggles, so make sure that the managers or leaders are checking in frequently with their teams. And the last tip that I have today is to plan for continuous process improvement. So we talked about designing it from the end user perspective, but don't think that you can just design the tool once and be done with it. When you have a champion or a team, you either want to set up where maybe that team meets regularly, or the champion meets with managers and end users from different areas using the CRM on a regular basis to discuss process improvements. I recommend at least yearly. Sometimes quarterly can be beneficial. It's also helpful to have a single person that champion, or if you have even like a support type box or an idea box, a place that people can email as they think of things, because when you have a meeting, people don't always think of all the process improvements, but a week down the road or 2 weeks down the road, they're going to be like, hey, wait, it'd be really awesome if CRM did this. So I recommend both meeting regularly to discuss process improvements and also to have a way to consistently provide feedback, usually email or a form, some type of survey type thing to fill out is super helpful. And that allows you the ability then to make process improvements as time goes on. Usually when you initially design a system, you're making a lot of changes in a short amount of time or setting a lot of things up. Along with meeting regularly to discuss process improvements, unless they're very small changes, I would recommend putting your improvements on some sort of schedule. So if you have 3 large things that everyone agrees this would be great to do in CRM, I wouldn't do one week, one the next week, one the following week. It is helpful to maybe only do those larger changes a couple times a year, similar to how software does rollouts of new and updated software. It is helpful not to be continuously changing the system, but to have kind of a set schedule. So maybe you guys meet in Q1 to discuss projects and process improvements. You have to take it back. Everyone has to agree on it. Executives have to agree on it, whatever your approval process would be. And maybe you do changes only in Q2 and Q4. You have those meetings in Q1 and Q3 or something like that. Obviously, timelines and the immediate need of a change is taken into account, but that's just some benchmarks that I suggest to start with when you're implementing. Making sure executives and mid-level managers are involved in supporting the process changes. So with this, a lot of times you can find an executive is like, yep, implement our CRM system, have them using it, great, we designed it, everything's going great. I still want to see my Excel reports. I'm still going to email you 5 or 6 times a week for data updates or whatever it may be. You want to make sure that the executives also have that buy-in, or that those mid-level managers are using the system. If your end users are taking the time to fill this data out, your executives and mid-level managers need to be involved in absorbing that data. They need to be looking at that. They need to be gathering their information. They may still need some more, hey, can you tell me why we have these 5 opportunities that have been sitting out there for 3 months? Or, they may have questions on some of the data. But if they're not going to be looking at it, you will get end users that are like, I still have to email him all the updates on my reports. Why should I bother entering it in CRM? I know that she's just going to reach out to me, on Teams or Skype or whatever your messaging system is. So why do I bother to put notes in my CRM? You have to make sure that at every level you do have that buy-in of using this system, because that's how it will become that central source of truth. And then last thing, when designing a system, plan for your business to grow with your CRM, not for it to outgrow your system. A lot of times when I've worked with customers, I'll hear, well, we want to be bigger in 5 years, but this is what we're doing now. So let's just make it work for now. Someday we might be bigger. You may not know exactly how your business is going to grow, but design your system so that if you have two divisions now, and you're like, well, we can just figure out which is which when we're looking at an opportunity. Well, maybe it's worth tracking the divisions and taking the time now to set that up, because down the road you might have 5 divisions, and trying to go and backtrack the data and input the divisions into what would then be hundreds of opportunities. And to try and make it fit at that point in time, once your business has grown, is going to be a lot harder than if you think about, okay, we know we want to grow in 5 years, so let's make sure this is open enough that we will be able to add more divisions or add more salespeople or whatever it may be, larger product lists. You make sure that you are planning your system with that ability to grow. And part of that is really having those regular process improvement meetings. You want to make sure that as your business is changing and as it's growing, that your CRM is adapting to it. The CRM specifically that we work with here, Microsoft Dynamics 365 customer engagement, is a very customizable system. So it is easy as time goes on to make those little changes, but it is important to think all the fields that I make now may be irrelevant in 5 years if now I need to track it in a different way. So you definitely want to think about growth when you are planning your current system setup. Any questions on what we have shared so far, or any questions maybe outside of things that you've encountered in an implementation? I'm not seeing any questions pop up, but if you do think of anything later and you want to reach out, here is my contact information. I love answering CRM questions, so feel free to send me any questions you have, and I would be happy to help you. You can also connect with us on our website. You can email our support box as well for any other general questions, but on our website, there will be other webinars on CRM if you're interested in learning more about managing your CRM system. And we also do have a blog that covers CRM among other topics for the services we offer. So definitely check those 2 areas out. I thank you all so much for spending a little bit of your time with me today, and I wish you a great rest of the day. Thank you so much.